0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Peter is in Oxford. Peter, what do you reckon?
Hello, James. Just to get the logic bit out of the way to start with, something hasn't been said before, but
yes.
Both Vance and Trump admitted that, first of all, the invasion had happened, that the cities of Ukraine had been destroyed, that's how they put it, and that Putin had a record of breaking promises for other presidents. They were very clear that had happened. The defence that Trump made was that with him in charge, this wouldn't happen because Putin respected him. Now, that's really saying that peace relies upon Trump being in power, and of course he won't be there forever. Had Zelenskyy said, well, of course, you're mortal, that would have been seen as provocative, as indeed when Zelenskyy mentioned the future,
yes.
Trump went absolutely wild about that. The other bit that I suppose completely lacks logic is all this talk about raw earth. I don't know if you picked up on that, but raw earth is a building material used in ancient times and still used, I think, in some hot countries. But it's nothing at all to do with what the. I think
it's become a figure of speech for valuable rare minerals. Rather.
Yes, it's rare earth, not raw earth.
Yes.
And what I'm saying is that Trump doesn't actually know what he's talking about. No surprise there.
That's true.
You can't appeal to logic with Trump. I mean, it just demonstrates that this is a complete logic-free zone as far as he's concerned. I think as everybody said, the behaviour of Trump and Vance was completely indefensible. Trump said at the end, now the first 40 minutes and the last minute of this exchange were never played on the news programmes, but
yes.
At the very end, Trump said that'll make good television.
Yes.
And with this at a time when he was apparently incandescent or pretending to be, but he actually had a self-satisfied look about it and almost joked about it. And that's what it means to him. It's all about entertainment.
It's not enough, though, is it? Because the question of who, because, you might get extraordinary ratings for a public execution, but if you're the person being executed, it's a pretty hollow victory, isn't it? So how does that work? How does that please him? What does he get out of it? When he comes out of the room and high-fives J.D. Vance and they say, hey, we really ... what fills that space?
Yeah, I mean, it's an ambush. And he did it because he believes he's a weak man. People are afraid of him. They're afraid to put it wrong. I mean, you probably saw the sort of a slightly concealed look of terror on the faces of Macron and Starmer when they spoke to Trump and were terrified of doing what actually Zelenskyy did.
Triggering a tantrum. They really didn't want to trigger a tantrum.
And they really didn't want to do that. That's why people are terrified of him. That's what he relies upon to maintain his power, and that's a sign of weakness.
But you're not answering the question, and there's no pressure, because I don't think we can answer the question of what do they think they achieved? What's the win here? What do they put in the bank and say, there, we've got something that we didn't have before?
Well, of course, what's going to happen now is that Zelenskyy is going to come back, looking humble and wanting his deal, which was never a good deal in the first place. He'll be on the back foot. He should never have made the trip in the first place without having the Sherpas doing the groundwork. That would normally happen. He thought he could go to Washington and negotiate with Trump. And clearly, he made the mistake of doing it in public and raising the stakes. At no point did he make any ad hominem statements the way that Trump and Vance had done.
Well, no politician ever does, really. I can't think of other examples of actual powerful people, proper leaders, people who've won elections, being so ad hominem. I could be wrong. There might be examples, but I can't really think of any.
Let me say what it was that they used as a pretext for responding. And the first thing that Zelenskyy said there was probably a mistake was that Vance had never been to Ukraine. And Vance basically said he'd seen it on television, so he knew everything. And that says something. The second thing he said was that since 2014, and Trump corrected him and said 2015, but it was 2014, as Zelenskyy was in a position to know, when Putin invaded Crimea, there wasn't a single American president who actually responded. And that was as much a criticism, if Trump had seen it, as much a criticism of Obama and Biden as it was of Bush and Trump, or certainly of Trump. It is true. I think in retrospect, a lot of Western leaders wished that they had responded at that time. He wasn't saying anything that was controversial. And in fact, if Trump had listened, he wouldn't have seen this as being a criticism of him. It was a more general statement about Western politicians. Now, yes, in retrospect, I'm sure that Zelenskyy should have said that in private, not in public, because he raised the stakes and made it impossible to continue with the negotiations. But he certainly was at every point telling Trump nothing but the truth.
And that question of, I mean, again, everything you say is interesting and valid, but it doesn't come close to addressing the question of what we think they want. And Vance looked like he was patting Trump on their back on the way out of the room. I mean, maybe there comes a point, and we're close to it now, where you have insulated yourself so completely from critique that all of the questions we ask no longer matter. So the question that came in from the partner of the Jewish space lasers woman, who Simon Marks warned us about last week, this is now the kind of journalist, I use the word very loosely, that is going to be getting privileged access in the White House. The people who ask questions that sound like variations on, you know, how come you're so amazing, Mr. President? That's it. So it doesn't even need to play well with the population. It just needs to play well in that tiny echo chamber that is inhabited by your own appointments and your own. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud because the answer to the question is still elusive, and we've been after it for an hour and 45 minutes. Okay, true or false? The new US